Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. Now, we shop every 6 to 10 weeks, depending on what we're trying to do. At the moment, this one's going to be a 6-week shop, and it is due next week. So this week is all about figuring out what needs to be used before the next shop, getting stuff in the freezer or out of the freezer, whichever way needs to be done, and sorting it so that when I do the next shop next week, I can do my inventory to see what we need, what we've gone through, what we have plenty of, and make sure that I'm using everything that was bought in the last shopping trip appropriately, because our goal is to not waste food. So part of that process is doing the inventories and doing the planning and doing the long-winded groceries and stuff. So over the next few days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record bits and pieces of what I'm doing to use up anything that needs to be used up, and going through whatever else needs to be done in the lead up to the next shop. This is sort of why I dragged the shopping out to every 10 weeks, was because there's a lot of build up either side of the shop as well. There's the prep work done with the stuff that you bought. There's the prep work in the lead up to the shop and things like that. And the more often I do it, the more there is of that prep work. So because we're doing, this one's a 6-week one, there is a little more prep work more often to do it more often. So anyway, we did do a bulk meat order last week, which I will include. I've kept the footage and I'll include that with the grocery haul just to give a better idea of what we're buying, because otherwise the grocery haul looks like there's no meat in it, and then that doesn't give you a particularly proper view of what we've actually purchased, though the meat does get broken up over a couple of shops, so the price wise like that. So what I might do is I'll share the averages that I worked out over this year, so that what the averages work out over the weeks that the grocery shops are supposed to go towards, because some months are more expensive when we do the bulk meat orders, but they last for 2 or 3 shopping periods. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to do a whole lot of meal prepping with stuff that we've got left to do. So first thing I need to do today is I have some rump that we have opened up and we've used part of. So I now need to use the rest of it and get that used. I'm probably going to make some meat pie filling. So what I might do before I pull the rump out of the fridge is actually get some onions going and caramelizing in a pot, because they take quite a while. So they can do that while I am cutting up the beef. I think that's how I'll go. So let me grab a pan and some onions and we will get started. All right, so let's start with our onions, and I'm just going to cut them fairly fine. Now some of these are starting to grow and aren't the greatest. I will have to buy a new big bag of onions this month, and I really need to get to a point where I'm mincing a bunch up for the freezer over summer, because they do go bad quicker over summer. Over winter it's not too bad. We got a few that are not great, but perfectly edible, but in summer they tend to go bad a lot quicker. So I'd like to get a big bag now while they should be nice and fresh from having been actually it's the wrong season for them, isn't it? I'll have to have a look. If I can get a good price on a big bag, I might get them and mince them up and stick them in the freezer for over summer until the next crop comes in. We'll see. So I'm just going to cut all these up, take any of the less pleasant bits off. I'm not concerned about the green bits because we're going to be caramelizing these off anyway, so it's not going to be a big deal. So I'm just going to slice them up. I was having a discussion in the comments with someone the other day about the choices in cutting boards. Anyone who has an opinion should let me know. Discussions about raw meat on wooden cutting boards and all that sort of thing. I think the thing is that there's so many different preferences and ideals about it all. I definitely prefer these cutting boards that are the single piece of timber. This one is an Orana brand. I've linked it before on Amazon. I'll try and remember to link it again because I really like these boards, and they're made from camphor laurel, and camphor laurel is inherently antibacterial, the timber itself. But all I find is that it doesn't matter what you're going to use. Like, you can say use plastic because it's not as porous, and it isn't as porous, but the whole point is that you're still cutting grooves into it, so it still does have a porous sort of a aspect. If you've got a dishwasher, yes, you can put your plastic ones through the dishwasher, which is going to sanitize them, but I tend to use sanitizing spray on all my cutting boards, and then I oil them, which gives them a good, surface that is not as absorbent for any sort of germs. But yeah, I think anything, no matter what you use, it's all about making sure that you clean it. And that's what it comes down to, whether you use plastic, whether you use timber, whatever you're using, so long as you are aware of it and are cleaning it. I have had comments a while ago because I was cutting raw meat and then I was cutting veggies or something on the same board, and I do have multiples of the same board, but I do that. I will cut my chicken up or beef up or whatever, and then I will cut the veggies up because the veggies are going into the pot to be cooked anyway, so it doesn't matter. Someone did pull me up about putting a plate on top of it after, like, that we then took with us to go and eat somewhere, and yeah, okay, that was probably incorrect, but I'm very limited in space and I get help in the kitchen, and that sometimes limits me too. But anyway, a few onions cut up. I'm going to throw these in the pan and grab some garlic cloves as well. Alright, my onions are pretty much caramelized, so I'm going to throw the garlic in there for a couple of minutes. So it was just 3 or 4 big elephant garlic cloves just diced up. I'm going to cook that off for a few minutes. We just got it on low, so I just want to take that up a little bit, and then we're working on the beef that I'm going to add. So all I'm doing is, it's a rump, and I'm just cutting it into little cubes so that I can cook it off. I'm giving the dogs lots of bits of the bigger muscle bits and fat because I'm started late. It's already 12:30, so normally I would cook this for like 8 hours, 10 hours, but I've left it too late to do that. So it's going to be a sort of a quicker cook, which means that I just need to be a bit more brutal about taking some of the muscle tissue and fat off, and the dogs get a treat. So good for them as well. Alright, there's some little offcuts here that are cooking for Darryl, but I've got the beef minced up, so I'm just going to toss this in. Now, realistically, I should probably brown it off separately and all that sort of thing, but I'm not going to. But I might split this into 2 pots because I'm going to add a whole bunch of veggies, so actually I might do that. Alright, I've got the beef split into 2, it's browned off. I remembered that I have these bags of diced bacon in the freezer, so I've pulled one of those out. And I'm going to toss a couple of handfuls of the diced bacon into each. This will add some fats, but also some flavour, of course. All right, and then I've started cutting up some potatoes, so I don't know how many I need, so I'm just going to toss some in each bowl. I'm going to cut up some carrots as well, and then we'll start looking at some liquid for these. So I might do a bit more potato and these carrots, and then I'll reassess. Alright, so I added a bit more potato, and I've just added all that diced carrot in it as well. And then I might add some corn at the end. I know a lot of people like peas in their pies. I'm really not a fan of peas. Though we do have all the peas that we shelled. I should use some of them because I was going to dehydrate them, but we ended up with the issues with the solar and the weather and stuff. And so they just went in the freezer. So I should probably use those, but I won't put them in too early or they'll just be mush. So for the moment, I'm just going to let this cook for a bit, and I'm going to get some stock and stuff together. Alright, I'm going to do a drizzle of balsamic vinegar to deglaze the pans. I'm going to put a quart of water, maybe not quite a quart of water in, and I'm going to use my French onion soup mix. Now, this was the made on the mix thing, and it has beef bouillon and onion and garlic and all sorts of things in it, so I'm going to use this as my beef bouillon alternative. Just going to put 2 heaped, I might do 3 heaped teaspoons in, and then I will let this go for a little bit, and then I'll assess. Alright, I brought them up to the boil and got liquid in them. I added a bit of the homemade Worcestershire sauce, things like that. I'm going to throw them in the oven now rather than putting them on the stovetop because it's hard to keep them at that low temperature on the stovetop. So I'm going to throw both pots in the oven on, say, 160 for the next couple of hours, and then I will eventually pull them back out, reduce them a bit, add some gravy powder to thicken them up and things like that. But for the moment, I'm just going to throw these both in the oven for a couple of hours and then clean up and do lunch. Alright, something else that needs to be done is I bought another 5 kilo bag of garlic. Nikki had run out, but she had a friend who's also doing garlic, and he had some. Some of it's getting a bit old. It's that late in the season. That's fine. Darryl's helping me to peel it all because the bag got wet. So I've diced up a whole bunch into little chunks like this to have in the freezer. You can use this for the chili oil and things like that where I want chunks of it. And then I'm going to puree up, mince some up with some olive oil and freeze it in ice cube trays. So I'm just going to put a glug of oil in with these ones and then run it through the Thermomix until it's minced. And we've got sort of consistent-ish sizing and not overly concerned. And then I'm going to find some silicone trays to freeze it in chunks of what I would use. And then that way I can just throw it in a pan to fry off before I fry whatever else I'm frying off. So we're just working through all of that at the moment in between eating lunch and stuff like that. So I've got some of these small silicone ice trays. These ones work quite well, which will be sort of like a teaspoon worth of garlic in each one. Now I generally would always use more than a teaspoon, so if I have to use bigger containers, then that's not a big deal either. So I'm going to fill the small ones up first, and then I will find bigger ones to use as well. Alright, so we got those two full. I'll get these into the freezer, and then I will find, I might just fill the bowl back up with the next lot, and then I'll figure out where I want to put them. So these two can go in the freezer to start with anyway. Alright, I got another Thermomix full that I'm going to blend up, and I've also got some ice trays with lids to put this lot in. So that's the plan for this batch. Again, I'm just going to put a glug of olive oil in there to help it blend up. Go in, speed 5. So there we go. Just got the ice trays. I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. Spread it out between all the ice trays. Okay, so I've got like 4 ice trays full of the minced garlic now. I've still got some here, and I will still make some more. I might do it in a Ziploc bag and then like crease it or something. But I've got the oven on with the slow roasting the pie filling. So I'm going to do a small pot of confit, and I'll do a tray with just some cloves roasted that I can turn into like garlic butter or whatever. Darryl will eat a chunk of it. Not too many, before I get the opportunity to turn it into anything else. But it does make really nice garlic butter for the baguettes that I turn into garlic bread, and I haven't done that in a while, so that would be nice. So I will make some confit though as well. So I'm just going to fill this small pot, cast iron pot here with some chunks, cover it in olive oil, and throw it in the oven as well to roast while the pie filling is cooking. I also have to figure something out for dinner because pie filling needs to chill before it can be put in pastry. So it's not dinner tonight. So it will go in the fridge once it's cooked and be dinner tomorrow. Alright, so we've just got this pot with the garlic. I'm going to cover it in olive oil and put it in the oven on low, and then I will have garlic olive oil that I can use, as well as the garlic in it will be nice and tender too. And a little bit of salt, which I find helps. Give it a little bit of a stir. Now I could add other things to the confit if I wanted, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with just garlic. So I'm going to put the lid on this, stick this in the oven until it's 2:30. So till I turn the oven off tonight, maybe 6:30 by the time I finish everything else. I'm just going to run it all day, which is why I want to put a few things in there. So I'm going to do the roasted garlic as well. So I'm going to get this one in, and then I'm going to find a tray to roast some garlic. Alright, so this is what I got left. I'm going to put in the bottom of this pan, and whatever's left over I will mince up. I am going to cut it slightly though, just because I've got the temperature of the oven fairly low because we're doing the confit and the pie filling. So these big cloves won't roast in the same amount of time. So I am going to quarter some of the big ones and get them in here, I'm going to drizzle them with a bit of oil. So instead of covering them with oil like the confit, I'm just going to drizzle some oil and some salt on these ones and let them roast and caramelize. And then they will be nice for eating with whatever, or for pureeing into garlic butter like I did last time for garlic breads, which were super tasty. And for Darryl to eat, yes, though the last time I roasted garlic he overdid it a little bit and made himself ill, so he's got to be careful.
I don't think I made myself ill, I made everybody else ill.
Okay, so he's clarified that. It wasn't that he was ill, it was that no one else could stand to be anywhere near him because the smell of him made them ill. There we go. Better? He was, it was secreting from him. So, but roasted garlic is delicious, and this will freeze too if I want to just freeze it. It's just another way. So I try not to do too much of just plain minced garlic, and I don't tend to pickle it or anything because buying garlic from Costco is like $9 for 1.5 kilograms of minced garlic, which is perfectly adequate for most uses. But this stuff is about $25 a kilo because it's local, and the flavour of it is much better. So it's a waste to use it in the same way as you would dried garlic, I find. I don't grow garlic generally speaking because I've never done it particularly successfully, but also because it uses up a garden bed for like 6 months of the year, and which is a long time to have that space taken up. And when I have access to buying this from Nikki, who sells it, you know, who grows it fairly locally to me, and I get to support her farm and all the rest of it, then it seems like a waste of resources for me to grow it. It's much better to buy it from her and then just spend the time to preserve it how I want to preserve it. I don't have a lid for this particular pot, so I'm just going to throw foil over it. Fairly nice and firm, but I will put some holes in it once it's steamed its way sort of soft, just to let some of the caramelization happen. So I've got olive oil. I'm just going to put a little bit in here, and I'll toss that, and I'll toss the bit of salt as well. Alright, so it's 4:30, we're going to be checking everything. We've got the garlic confit, which is pretty much done. The garlic is perfectly soft to the touch, and that is all looking very nice. So I'll put that aside. We have the roasted garlic, which might need a bit of time with the foil off. I've already pierced it. Yeah, we're going to give that some time. It's all nice and soft, but I want it to actually roast up a little bit now. So I'm going to peel back to one layer of foil and tear it open in the middle a bit so that we've got some air escaping, and then I'll take it all the way off if I need to as well, but we don't want it to go too crispy because when it's crunchy it can be a bit bitter. Alright, now pie fillings we already checked once and they should be fine. Let me get this back in. Alright, pie fillings all looking very good. So the only thing we want to thicken them up a bit. So I'm going to put them both on low heat and add a little bit of gravy powder to turn the liquid into gravy on both of them. But the meat is tender and that's what we were looking for. This one is a little bit more liquid than this one for some reason, don't know why, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put some gravy powder in just on low temperature while we get this sprinkled over the top. I've just got a ladle full for each, which is about 1/3 cup probably, and we're just going to cook this off. All the veggies are breaking down, so the meat pie will be lovely and rich. And remember that these are going to cook again for sort of 20-30 minutes once they're in the pie. So what I'm going to do now is grab those peas out of the freezer. So last shopping trip we got a box of shelling peas and we ate a lot of them, but we also shelled a lot of them, and I was going to dehydrate them for instant soups, noodles, that sort of thing, but kind of had issues with the solar and everything else, and it just didn't happen. So I'm going to put some in here. So these were just fresh shelled, flash frozen. I was going to potentially still dehydrate some of them, and I might still when I run the dehydrator next, but for the moment I'm just going to throw. Now I'm not going to cook these any further because, as I said, when the pie gets cooked, when it's in the pastry, it'll get cooked for 30 minutes with the pastry. So all I'm going to do is mix those through, and then I'm going to put the lids back on these and put them aside to cool. And that is bulk beef pie filling done, using up veggies that needed using, beef that needed using, all of the above, all sorted and ready to go. All right, 6:30, as I said, pulled the garlic out. I haven't let it get too coloured because we don't want to have too much texture on it. We just want the smooth roasted flavour of the garlic that we're going to puree into the garlic butter for the garlic bread. So that is done, and that is everything for today, and I'll be back tomorrow. Hey everyone, next day, and I'm way behind schedule. It is 3:30 in the afternoon. I've spent the morning doing many other tasks that aren't cooking. I did pancake bake for lunch, and we had smoothies and things like that, but for breakfast, and we had smoothies, and we reheated sausage rolls for lunch and all that sort of stuff, but not the stuff that I wanted to do. I should have time. So I'm going to throw some dough together to make the garlic bread and some pastry together to make the pie bases, and then we will see how the rest of the day progresses, because it's just not been the greatest of days. So I'm going to just throw the dough together, let it proof. While it's proofing, I'll make the pie dough, and it can go in the fridge for an hour until I'm ready to use it. I'll probably make just a single batch of pie dough, make 2 pies, and just use puff pastry as the top layer. Just make it easy on myself. And there will be plenty of pie filling left over. Darryl can have some without the pastry if he wants, or I can freeze some for another pie. We'll see how we go. But that's the plan. So it's the next day. Let's get this dough sorted first. Now, normally I use my baguette dough, which is not enriched at all. I think it's got a little bit of oil in it maybe, but I actually think I'm going to use my brioche dough, but I'm going to add a little extra flour and make it a little less wet to make some baguettes with for the garlic bread, because I think that just will be really nice. I got the 720 of tepid water. I'm going to add a bit of coconut cream. I don't think I've got quite enough here for what I'd normally use, but we're only wanting to enrich these slightly. So I'm not going to open anything new. I'm just going to top that up with a bit more water. Alrighty, and then we're going to add some sugar. The recipe for my brioche dough is up on the website, and this is just going to be a bit of a throw together, slightly adapted one. That was a bit less sugar, about half the sugar than normal, which is fine, because, as I said, we're doing a semi brioche here, just because I think it'll be nice with the roasted garlic. I don't appear to have any yeast here. Some yeast, oil. Alright, so that's kneading. So now I need to throw together my pastry. Now, I don't have any lard at the moment. I render my own lard, buy it in bulk and render it, and I haven't done it in a while, so I just don't have any at the moment. So I'm just going to try doing it with some butter. So what I do is I do a half lard, half olive oil, which makes it really nice malleable dough, not too short and things like that. So I think all I'm going to do is do my normal, but I will do half olive oil, half butter. Again, we've been reintroducing some dairy into the kids' diets, some butter here and there, some cheese here and there, things like that. So and they've been tolerating it okay, so long as we don't overdo it. So I don't think a little bit of butter in pastry for a pie is going to be an issue. So I'm going to grab 400 grams of just plain flour to put in here. Let me just pull my scales up. Then we're going to do 60 grams of olive oil, 60 grams of butter that I'm just going to cube up fairly small. Alright, and then I'm going to grab 110 grams of cool water and a pinch of salt. And we're just going to bring this together. Turn that KitchenAid off. Alright, so we just did 15 seconds on speed 5 and I'll have a look at it. Yep, I'm just going to scrape down the sides and give it a really quick whiz and then bring it out. Alright, then all we do is we tip it out and bring it together, and then I'm going to split it in two and stick it in the fridge to firm up a little bit before I roll it out for dinner. So we've still got some flecks of butter in there, which is what we want. We're going to cut it in two, and we're just going to shape each one into a bit of a disc to make it easier to roll it out to a pie. Just like that. Together, some Glad wrap or a reusable Ziploc bag or whatever in the fridge for the next hour and these little bits of fat will firm up again before we roll them out to cook them as pies. Alright, dough is done. It's possibly still a little wet, but we'll deal as we always do. I really wanted to make some custard buns or something today. It was just really what I felt like. It's that time of the month for me at the moment, and being my age, it's not great. So I really wanted to make some custard buns, but I got started far too late. The kids have a whole bunch of assessments due today that I am helping them, a whole bunch of assessments due this week that I'm helping them get through. Darryl's in a lecture all afternoon, and yeah, I didn't get there. So maybe tomorrow, we'll see. But this dough is definitely a bit wetter than I would like, but it will be fine for the purposes that we're doing. Just giving it some sort of coil / slap and folds in the bowl. Get it nice and coated in that oil, because yeah, it just feels a little wetter than normal. I got totally sidetracked, and this is far more proofed than it should be. Staying on task at the moment is really not my forte, but it'll be fine. Alright, so got this out, and I'm going to put a little bit of flour down and scrape out the dough. Now it feels pretty good texture wise. It's not too sticky. It's well oiled. Should be good. Alright, so all I'm doing is creating a little bit of tension in the dough to make it easier to work with. A little bit of flour on the external and some coil folds, and then it's ready to go. Okay, now I am going to put a little semolina on my scales. I've got 8 easily findable baguette pans, so I'm going to split it into about 8, which is around about 250, I think, for this dough. It's 260, because I can't remember what this dough ends up being. What did we end up with? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And this one's fairly oversized. Alright, I'm just oiling my hands slightly, and all we're going to do is we're going to flatten it out just a little bit, leave some air in there, and we're just going to we're really winging it today. We're just going to pinch all the edges together, keep it nice and fluffy, not play with the dough too much. I'm not going to pinch it too tight today, and I'm just going to place it. Alright, so we're going to go super simple. Try and leave some of the air in the dough this time, and just roll it. So instead of a really firm roll like I would normally do for my baguettes, we're going to leave them puffy to complement the roasted garlic. That's the idea anyway. And I'm just going to sprinkle generously with the semolina because everything's a little tacky. And nothing is going to be consistent today. But anyway, this is going to be garlic bread, so I'll show you when it's done because this is a really poor representation of baking, but it should still turn out really nice and still look really good when I make the garlic butter. So I was just thinking that I should have left that butter out to soften so that I could whip it up with the garlic, but anyway, I'll bring it back. Alright, we have some little ones, some big ones, super uneven, but I really didn't use the dough I didn't handle the dough too much, so we've got really puffy ones, which is not how I normally do my baguettes. Normally my baguettes are quite a tight crumb, quite firm, but these will be really tasty, I think, with the garlic butter. They don't need long to do the second proof because of how long they were already proofed. Scoring's not easy because the dough is really slack, but we'll give it a go. And I'm just going to throw these straight in the cold oven, and then we'll do the very last proof as the oven heats, and then cook for dinner. Then I need to pull the pastry out. Alright, pies. I have two pie dishes. This one, which is a Crofton cast iron pan that I use as a deep dish pie, and this one that a viewer sent me off my wish list a while ago. It's a layman's one. It is so cool. I really want another one. I'm going to have to figure out. I think they weren't available for a while here in Australia. But I'm going to have another look because this is a really nice pie dish, and it's a bit shallower than this one, which is a bit easier for getting the pastry to fit nicely. So I'd like a second one of those pie dishes, maybe even 3 more eventually, so that I could like cook 4 at a time, so that 2 can be wrapped up for the freezer and 2 can be eaten over the day or so. Now, the dough, I probably should have tossed it in the freezer because it wasn't going to go in there for very long, but it's not too bad, but it's going to be a bit soft, so it just might end up shorter than normal, but that's fine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to gently roll it out into as big a circle as I can get easily. So I do it into an oval, flip and rotate to get that circular shape happening, and then I will adjust as my directionals as needed to get it as round as possible for those pie tins. And we want it nice and big, especially for this deep one. But what I might do is fill the shallow one first and cut excess, and then I'll have a little bit extra for the deeper one if I need it. So that has rolled out really nice, but as I said, it's a bit warm, so I'm not seeing those pockets of fat that I would normally like to see in a pie dough because it was a little bit warm, but that's fine. We are not fussy. So roll it up like that, get a pie dish, and we're going to roll it out over the top. And then Kavik wants to help, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to position this, and then he can push it into the bottom of the could have needed to be a little bit bigger probably, but
I washed my hands.
that's all right. So Kavik, just push it into the edges gently, make sure it's touching the bottom and stuff, and up the sides. Yep, and I'll get the pie filling. We're just going to make sure this goes all the way up the sides because the pie dough shrinks as it cooks. So I'm just going to reposition some of it if need be, which is why this dough is really nice and malleable. So I have no idea what the dog's going off at the moment. Probably a cat walking past.
I don't even
All right.
Friday, so I didn't think they would bother that much.
And then we're just going to fill with the cooked, yeah, they're those peas that we shelled, those fresh ones.
I'll grab a piece of pastry.
Probably needs to defrost a bit more before we can grab it.
Yes, it's solid still.
All right, so fill the pie casing well. You want to mound it in the middle because it's going to collapse as it hits. So you want them well filled. All right. So I'm just going to put this aside for a minute because my puff pastry is still defrosting a little bit. I'm just using puff pastry because I'm being lazy today. I didn't want to make 2 batches of the short crust. So I'm just going to lay, they're still a bit frozen, so I'm just going to lay them on here for the moment and let them soften a little bit, and then I'll take the corners off and fill in bits if I need to. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to be tasty, and that's all that matters. So I've still got the bread going at the moment, so another 10-15 minutes for the bread. This will soften, I'll cut it off, I'll pinch it, and then I'll throw them in the oven, and then we will have food. I'll bring you back when I got the butter out to soften a little bit, and I'll bring you back when I'm making the garlic butter and the baguettes with the garlic butter. We've sort of crimped them, sort of. These pies are very, very rustic, and Kavik is making the cuts on the top. He wanted to make a smiley face on that one, so we've got a smiley face cut for the steam to escape on that one, and we're just waiting for the bread to finish. All right, so I've got some butter here. I've had it out on the bench for a little bit, but it's probably not anywhere near as soft as it should be, but the Thermomix will manage. So I'm just going to cube it up. I might do 250 grams, maybe 500. Let's see. Scales. All right, so we got 500 grams of butter, and then I've got the roasted garlic. How much do I want to put of that? Let me grab a spoon. All right, let's have a look. Oops. That is 100 grams. So maybe we go 150. And then we'll taste it. We might need to add a bit more salt or something to it. We will see. All right, we might need to run a little bit of heat just because the butter was a bit cold. So I might just gently warm the bowl to like 40. And I'm just going to get the Thermomix spatula so that we can manipulate it while we're doing it. I might throw a tiny bit of olive oil in to help the emulsion and for some liquid. And then I'm actually thinking, rather than adding salt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just like a level spoon of the French onion soup mix, which has a bit of beef bouillon, garlic, paprika, all those sorts of things. I think that's going to really step it up. Fresh herbs would be wonderful. Wrong season for that. Hopefully I get some herbs and stuff growing this year, but we will see. So Kavik's just washing the spatula for me. All right, I'm just going to... So we've just got that at, 37-ish degrees to soften that a little bit. Added that bit of olive oil to help it emulsify as well. And we're pretty good. We've got this creamy butter emulsion. Kavik, going to put that back in the fridge for me. The rest of that roasted garlic, I'll probably mix that up into something else, or I might freeze it. I'm not real sure what I'm going to do with it. But the bread is done. So this is how it came out. So we've got 2 trays of this lovely, it's stuck a little bit, which is my own fault, but we got this really soft French bread. It's very, very tender crumb. I'm going to cut this one open and try it with a bit of this butter while the pies are cooking, and then I'm done again for the day. I'll show you the pies once they're done, but I'm going to So dense but very, very tender crumb. So this is perfect for the purpose. And then I'm going to put some of this garlic butter generously on here. I'm then going to grab a sprinkle of everything bagel, which will add a little bit more salt, a bit of garlic, a bit of onion flakes, some sesame seeds, all my favorite things on top there. And I will share some with Kavik, who is here helping me. That is just amazing. This is dinner. I don't think I need pie, but anyway, I'll show you the pies when they're done. Here we go. The other one's not quite cooked. Mike's not on. The other one's not quite cooked through because it was a little bit deeper, so it's taking a little bit longer to brown up the pastry, but this is what they look like. Knife, plate.
Wait, can I show them my gun afterwards?
Now, the longer they sit to just sort of set, the easier they are to get out of the pie tin, but I'm running late. It's already 6:15, which is late for us for dinner. So I'm going to pull a piece out, show it to you, and then I'm going to finish up for the evening.